What is going on, everybody? My name is Kneeckoh. Welcome back to another Pokemon Scarlet and Violet moveset guide video. Today, we're going to be talking about a Pokemon that is going to be absolutely everywhere. This Pokemon is going to be incredibly solid in Regulation D. That Pokemon being URSHIFU. Both forms, I think, have a role here in Regulation D. I think both are incredibly solid and have very good probability of being on teams, whether it be on rain teams with URSHIFU Rapid Strike or just being on a more generalized team on URSHIFU Single Strike. So I think both of these are super solid. So if this is your first time here on the channel, make sure you are subbed for more videos like this in the future and leave a comment below which form of URSHIFU is your favorite. But let's get into it. So URSHIFU, let me tell you, I'm excited to have this Pokemon back. I think this Pokemon is going to be very meta defining because of just how good this Pokemon is, especially in non-restricted formats. I think it falls off a bit in more restricted formats. You saw that a fair bit in Sword and Shield, but in non-restricted formats, especially now that we can Terra away from a lot of the weaknesses that this Pokemon has, there's just a lot of scenarios where URSHIFU just dominates, right? It's just an incredibly powerful Pokemon all around. I think it's just super good. And for that reason, I think it's going to be everywhere. It plays so well into a lot of the Pokemon in the format, and it just deals with things so effectively. So URSHIFU is fun because of Unseen Fist. If you're unfamiliar, maybe you didn't play Sword and Shield, this Pokemon's contact moves ignore the target's protection except Max Guard. It is absolutely crazy. Absolutely insane. And each of these also get a always critical hit. Like, the reason Meowscarada was so good is because Flower Trick, obviously, you know, was always a critical hit. They basically made a grass type URSHIFU that didn't break through protects, right? Now we have URSHIFU back that breaks through protects, and it does what Meowscarada did, but better, right? So we have Surging Strikes and Wicked Blow, which are always critical hits, and this hits 3 times. This hits once, critical hit every time, huge damage, right? Absolutely crazy. For that reason alone, it is just going to be an incredibly prevalent and powerful Pokemon. It's something that is going to pop up a lot. It's going to cause a lot of problems for a lot of those more frail Pokemon, looking at specifically at like Chi-Yu, looking at Fluttermane, things like that are not going to enjoy the existence of URSHIFU. So it's something that you just have to consider when looking at this particular Pokemon. But also, it just gets such powerful attacks that you can just absolutely dominate. So the way I think that URSHIFU plays in Scarlet and Violet versus how it played in Sword and Shield is honestly very similar. I don't think there's a major change that you have to be worried about in terms of how this Pokemon plays. So either you were running like a Focus Sash, which I think Focus Sash is honestly the worst way to play this particular Pokemon. Going into Regulation D, you can run basically this. This is your set. You're going to run Jolly, right? And you are going to just try and do as much damage as possible before you get knocked out. For this reason, I think that something like Choice Scarf or Choice Band is going to be your best bet. It basically serves the same role that you served with Great Tusk. You know, you are a very slow Pokemon in general. Let me pull up Great Tusk. Very slow Pokemon, 87 base speed. This is 97 base speed. So being able to just go like this and put a Choice Scarf on it, allowing it to be faster than a lot of the bigger threats in the format, allows you to really set up and allow URSHIFU to start eating. Similarly to how we were using Great Tusk in Regulation C. And for that reason, I think Choice Scarf is honestly one of the best options for this. And then you just throw U-Turn on this Pokemon and you are set and ready to roll. I think it's just incredibly powerful. It's very solid. Dark type is a very good typing in terms of Single Strike. Being able to just go in and start doing crazy amounts of damage to most Pokemon and not have to worry about, you know, defenses and things like that is going to put you in a really positive position. URSHIFU Rapid Strike, also same deal. You have Close Combat and you have Aqua Jet, and then you also have U-Turn. For this reason, you have so much priority and you're able to just start doing crazy amounts of damage to a lot of stuff. Think of this: Terra Water, Surging Strikes with a Tornadus next to you, right? So you either, if you're not faster than everything on the field, you have access to Tailwind. But if you are faster than everything on the field, then you have Rain Dance. You have so much damage output with this particular Pokemon that it is just absolutely crazy, and they can't protect in front of you, which puts you in such a strong position for dealing with a lot of the major threats. So I think that for this reason, URSHIFU is absolutely crazy. It's going to be a Pokemon that just continues to pop up left, right, and center. So So in terms of teammate, obviously we've already talked about Tornadus. Tornadus is going to be very, very good as a partner for this particular Pokemon, but also just anything that's going to give you Tailwind priority. Not even just Tailwind, but also things like Regieleki is going to be really good. Being able to set Electro Webs and be able to just outspeed stuff is going to be incredibly nice. Iron Bundle does the same thing, right? Iron Bundle with Icy Winds is going to be very nice. So anything that's going to allow URSHIFU to go first and do URSHIFU things with its crazy amounts of damage is going to be really, really solid for this particular Pokemon. And that's really all you have to talk about in terms of like how to build URSHIFU. It's really not complicated in terms of Terra types. Like, just depending on the team, like if you're running a rain team and you're like, oh, you know, I'm running rain, maybe I don't need the extra water damage for whatever reason, run steel, right? You avoid your fairy weakness. You're able to have reduced fire type damage into you going into, you know, obviously if you're playing in the rain, fire is going to do reduced damage. This is a good defensive Terra typing here. In terms of this Pokemon, honestly, dark. Just go dark, wicked, blow stuff into next year. This is going to be like dark typing Gambit, where you're just trying to maximize that damage. You know that there are threats against you, but you just don't care because you're going to be able to bop them into the next year, right? So I definitely think that dark for single strike is going to be really solid, but there are a couple different defensive options for URSHIFU Rapid Strike that you could potentially run. And I mean, in terms of single strike, you could also run like fire, and that would be really solid as well. You could run fire to avoid burns and things like that. Definitely an option for this particular Pokemon, but I just think that dark does so much freaking damage that it's like, why waste the opportunity for a ×2 stab, right? But teammates, other teammates that are really good for this, I'm trying to think here. Again, Tailwind setters, so I could definitely see a world where, you know, Talonflame maybe still pops up here and there for this particular Pokemon. I don't think we see a lot of Murkrow going into Regulation D. As good as Murkrow has been for us, we now have Tornadus back, and it's like, why run this Prankster setter with like minimal damage output when we could run this with like Breakwind Storm or a Hurricane, things like that. This thing actually does a lot of damage, so like, you know, you have a bit more options. I still think Murkrow has a place. Does this get Sunny Day? It does. Actually, I don't know that Murkrow has any place. Murkrow, I just don't see being a big addition to many teams, for the reason that it is just like, it's outclassed now. We have Tornadus back. I just think Murkrow falls off very heavily. Pokemon that aren't going to like looking at URSHIFU, your very frail Pokemon, Fluttermane, looking at Chi-Yu, Chien-Pao, like all of these Pokemon, very frail. Like Chien-Pao specifically, don't like looking at URSHIFU, especially like Surging Strikes into Chien-Pao is just going to bop you. It's going to just run through you, break your sash. There's just not a whole lot that Chien-Pao can do about it. So for that reason, I think that Chien-Pao has a really hard time. Chi-Yu obviously has a really hard time. Fluttermane, again, very difficult time. All these Pokemon just have issues playing into URSHIFU. I think for that reason that these are going to have a drop in usage. I still think they're going to be popular. Like Fluttermane's still going to be a good Pokemon. I still think it's something that's going to bring, but I don't think we're going to see like the 70% usage rate that we were seeing at tournaments because of things like URSHIFU existing. Other Pokemon that don't like looking at URSHIFU, Ursaluna is one that's going to be everywhere, and Ursaluna really it struggles into this particular matchup, because if you think about Flame Orb, the idea is you run like Ursaluna, Cresselia, something like that, and you protect and get your Trick Room up, right? Cresselia is going to get mollywopped by an URSHIFU. Especially if it's a Surging Strikes, you're going to have a lot of problems, but like, if you don't want to blow your Terra immediately, Wicked Blow just bops Cresselia. So you do have to be extremely cautious of that. A lot of these are probably going to run Terra Fairy. You're going to have issues, but also the fact that you can't just sit there and protect in front of URSHIFU. Like, you can't be like, I'm just going to ignore you and let my Flame Orb get up. That is going to be a huge problem for URSHIFU. Very, very large problem for this particular Pokemon. So definitely something you have to consider if you're an Ursaluna player. URSHIFU just loves you. It wants to eat you for breakfast. But there are Pokemon that you're not going to want to play into necessarily. I think Regieleki can cause a lot of problems for you, and Iron Bundle as well. Just being Pokemon that can slow you down and like mitigate your speed that you're mainly going for is going to be a big problem for you. So for that reason, these two Pokemon, Iron Bundle as well, is going to be a big problem. Looking at like Iron Hands, you don't really have great answers for Iron Hands specifically. This Pokemon could just kind of tank your hits and then do like big damage in return, Drain Punch you or Wild Charge you, whatever the case may be. Iron Hands plays into URSHIFU incredibly well for that reason. So another Pokemon you have to keep your eye out on. I think Enamorus causes a lot of problems for URSHIFU. Because it is very bulky and it is immune to well, it's not immune, but it has resistance into fighting as well as into dark. Single Strike URSHIFU has a lot of problems. Rapid Strike plays a bit better into Enamorus, but it is still a Pokemon you need to be cautious of because of the damage that it can do with its fairy type attacks into you. Whether it be Enamorus or Enamorus Therian, both of these are going to be potential problems. Honestly, I think Rillaboom could potentially pose some problems. This is a very bulky Pokemon and able to take a lot of hits, has Fake Out pressure, but it also has access to Wood Hammer, for, you know, the Rapid Strike URSHIFU variant, or it also has access to Drain Punch for the Single Strike URSHIFU. So either way, I think Rillaboom plays pretty decently into URSHIFU. Obviously, you have to be cautious of the U-turn here, but I think that a lot of Rillabooms are going to opt for like maybe Terra Fire or something to that effect to avoid damage in that regard, or I could even see them rolling like another defensive Terra type to avoid damage. So I think Rillaboom is a potential candidate to deal with URSHIFU fairly effectively. Opposing Tornadus could actually be issues for URSHIFU because of its flying type, being able to deal big damage with Bleakwind Storm or with Hurricanes into you could be a potential problem. It's something you definitely have to consider. For that reason, I think that it could do damage, but again, this is a very frail Pokemon that is going to be very situational into URSHIFU and is going to be able to be bought by like a Rapid Strike, Surging Strike, you know, so definitely something that you have to be cautious of. But I definitely think Tornadus has a role to play in that regard. I still think Dragonite pops up here and there, and obviously a Terra Blast from a Dragonite never feels good, so that's a Pokemon you definitely have to be worried about, especially considering it likes to run multi-scale right now. And I still think that Orthworm Dragonite is going to be very popular still. Orthworm Dragonite is something that I think will pop up a lot considering we have access to Lando Therian now. It basically replaces the slot for Tinglu and just does a lot of damage and intimidates you as well. So I definitely think that there is a place for Earthworm Dragonite Lando that is going to be really, really solid, allowing URSHIFU to allowing Pokemon to set up on URSHIFU and cause a lot of problems. But all in all, I think URSHIFU is a really solid Pokemon. I think it's in a really good place in the format. I think it's going to be one of the most popular Pokemon, meta defining. There's just so much good to say about URSHIFU, whether it be either form. I think either form has a huge use case. I actually have a team that I'm very excited to try out once the ladder opens up, that features a Rapid Strike URSHIFU. So really, really excited to use this Pokemon. I think it's going to be incredibly good. So something to definitely keep your eye out on when you're hitting the team builder, when you're starting to prep for Regulation D. But that is going to be it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed, and if you did, leave a like and subscribe for more videos like this in the future. Also, be sure to check out the Discord. People over there hanging out, playing Pokemon all the time. And if you're interested in seeing anything else from me, check out any of these videos that you see here on screen. I post daily competitive Pokemon content, so there is tons of stuff here for you to check out. But until next time, peace.